You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast. What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the On Purpose Podcast. Man, I'm excited for this episode. It's humbling. I gotta tell you, I'm very humbled by not only that I get to show up for you all each week, but just the amount of people we're meeting from around the world to share their stories and to connect the dots, right? We get to breathe the bridge between the story of people and those that need to find it. And we know that everybody's story has value and that somebody out there is waiting to hear your story. And as we do this, we've been digging deeper into what is the actual purpose of the On Purpose Podcast. The why, not the what, but the why. And I came up with this, that the On Purpose Podcast exists to brighten the days of people around the world by sharing inspiring and thought-provoking content. And if that aligns with you, we'd love your help in reaching that goal and reaching more people. And you can do that by joining us at the On Purpose Podcast over on Patreon, where you can have a paid membership, or you can just simply like, share, review on whatever your favorite platform is to help us find more people. All right, this week's gonna be awesome. And let me tell you, I got a guy coming on the show. A gentleman coming on the show goes by Pepè Willie. He grew up in Brooklyn, New York, facing gangs, poverty, and abusive father. And it was through music that he learned the nature of positive thinking, that it was possible for him to achieve success. His uncle was one of the founding members of Little Anthony and Imperials, and he ended up working as a mentor to people you may have heard, such as Prince, Morris Day, and Andre Simone. This week, we're going to sit down and talk with Pepè about his journey through the musical industry, meeting people, sharing the truth of Black history and the influence of music, and his autobiography, If You See Me, My 6-Decade Journey in Rock and Roll. I hope you enjoy this week's interview with Pepè Willie. Right. Pepè, welcome to the On Purpose Podcast, my friend.
All right. Thank you for the invite. I love it. I love it.
I'm excited to have you. As I was getting ready to have you on here, I'm not going to lie, though, Pepè, I got a little nervous. You got some stars around you, my friend.
How can you be nervous? I'm the one that's nervous.
Oh, it's good. It's good. Pepè, give us a real brief bio so our audience can hear a little bit more about you.
Oh, okay. Well, I grew up in the music business in Brooklyn, New York. My uncle, Clarence Collins of Little Anthony and the Imperials, Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, 2009, baby. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So growing up with these guys was just unbelievable. I mean, I went to my first rock and roll show presented by Murray Decay in New York. He was a DJ in New York. And they had a rock and roll show at the Brooklyn Paramount. And I was 15 years old. And my uncle took me there, my mother's brother, he took me there. And I'm standing around in the Imperials room. There was tons of stars there. I can't remember all the stars that were there at the Paramount, but I remember Chubby Checker was there,
Yeah.
And so my uncle had says, I'm standing around in their dressing room. He says, hey, why don't you go to these other stars' rooms, knock on their door and see if they want anything from the store, and you can run errands for them. And I said, oh, okay, cool. I didn't think anything of it. And the first person that I went to the store for was Chubby Checker. Mr. Twist. I'm going like, oh my God, the guy's, the Twist guy. And knocked on his dressing room door. And he says, come on in. I go in and I'm looking at Chubby Checker. I mean, it was amazing. And then I said, well, do you want anything for the store? I'm running errands. And he goes, well, yeah. He says, go get me a pack of Salem cigarettes. So I go get, I go out the stage door, and they had a police line there. and all of these people in the crowd, all these fans and everything, they're standing around. And every time the door would open, they would scream, ah! Like a star was coming out. And it was me. And I'm going like, okay, now I'm fresh into this. I go to the store. I get a pack of Salem cigarettes for Chubby Checker. I come back. I knock on the stage door. And this person in the crowd says, hey, how come he can go in and out when he can? And the guard had opened the door. And I said, well, because I went and got Chubby Checker these cigarettes and I was holding them up. Man, the crowd broke down, and they grabbed me. They ripped my shirt. The guard had to pull me in the door and everything. And that was my first experience, with fans and groupies and all of that. I had no idea. I had to get another shirt. They just ripped it apart.
And it didn't scare you out of the music industry, though.
Oh man, it was crazy. And then the next year, they moved the shows over to the Brooklyn Fox Theater, and they had the whole Motown review. They had everything there. And during this time, I'm learning about the music industry from my uncle and everything. And now to me, I was a veteran now, and it was no problem for me to go knock on the doors and stuff but they had like Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells, Dionne Warwick, Mary Wells, the Four Tops, the Temptations, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Ray Charles, Jane Americans. I mean, Timmy Euro, Wayne Newton, he was like 18 years old, the Ronettes, the Righteous Brothers. I mean, all of these people, I'm running up and down the stairs, getting running errands for them, getting them food and things like that. And at the same time, I was learning about the business, So Little Anthony and the Imperials, they were my mentors that taught me everything.
Yeah.
I mean, and they taught me the right way. So I learned the business through them, and it was amazing. Totally amazing.
Pepe, we're honored to have you here, and I can't wait to dive deeper into some of these stories. But before I do that, I got to warm you up. Like, I can't just put you on the stage and have you singing at top level. We got to warm up the vocal cords a little bit. We got to warm up our minds. So, are you ready to get warmed up, Pepe? Are you ready?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm ready. Let's go.
Here we go. Yeah. First warm-up question. You are on a deserted island for the rest of your life. You get one food. What do you want to be eating?
I got one food?
Yep. What do you want to eat for the rest of your life?
Fish.
Okay, what kind of fish?
Any kind of fish that comes out of the ocean, I'm going to eat. I'm gonna eat it.
All right. You get to have a superpower. What was your superpower and why would you want it?
My superpower, I would think, would be to have the intelligence and the know-how to talk to people. To talk to people, to change their ways. Some of them are bad, all the good things that I could provide to them, with my language. I could say, how you treating your woman, how you treating your kids, what kind of things are you saying to your children so that they can survive in this world today.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. What's a favorite book of yours, Pepe?
Well, of course, it would probably be mine.
Yeah, that's just coming out, huh?
No, one of my favorite books that I like to read are all the James Bond novels.
Okay.
And I read practically all of them, from Dr. No, Russia with Love, Goldfinger, and all those. I love those spy things because when I start reading, it was like I was there. It was like I was in, those cars that they were driving and everything. It was so well written and everything. So my books, would be adventure spy books. And I love sci-fi too. So,
okay.
Yeah.
If you get to have dinner with one person, they could still be alive with us or they may have passed. Who would you have dinner with and what do you want to learn from them?
Wow. Well, it would probably be Prince.
Okay.
although I spent a lot of time with him, I would love to sit down and eat dinner with him to find out, how do you have the energy to work so hard? I mean, this guy, he just worked so hard. They practiced at my house, the Revolution, for 12 hours a day. And then when I went to see Prince later on that evening after 12 hours of practice, he's down in the basement practicing drums.
Yeah.
After 12 hours. And I tried it. I said, well, look, I picked up my guitar and I said, I'm going to try this. I'm going to practice 12 hours a day and I'm going to get really good. And I got to about 4 hours and that was it.
Yeah.
I couldn't get past 4 hours. Yeah.
That's what made Prince part of who he was, right? It's just that work ethic.
He was the hardest working man in show business. Everybody also says James Brown was, but he had nothing on Prince. Prince worked continuously.
All right. How you feeling? You warmed up now, Pepe? We feeling good?
Oh, yeah. Let's go. Do I sound good? Am I all right?
You sound great. Looking sharp. Yes, my friend. Hey, so I want to start this episode going back in time to growing up in Brooklyn, and something that you said that I want to expand upon is you had to learn the nature of positive thinking, and that through music you found it was possible for you to be successful. Talk us through that journey.
Well, that journey, first of all, I was reading a lot of books, and I can't remember the author's name, but the book title was The Nature of Positive Thinking, and one of the main clues was do not dwell on the negative.
Yep.
And I thought that was so cool. And me growing up in Brooklyn with gangs and all these other things that was going on that were bad, I had to kind of like prepare myself to be a very positive person. Even people that I said that, I don't like this person,
Yeah.
But then I had to find something about that person that I liked, whether it was a tie or a shirt or their shoes. And I would say, oh, wow, those are nice shoes you got, man. Those are great. And then we start a conversation, and then I start to learn about these people, or that person. And because there was no reason for me to dislike anyone because of first impression, I looked at them, I go like, oh, I don't really like this person and stuff. And I would ask myself, well, why? Why don't you like this person? Find something about this person that you do like and strike up a conversation to learn more about this person and promote, myself to that person and say, wow, I really like this person again, so there was no reason, no reason.
And what role did music play? Like, when did music come into your life, and how did that let you see that there's a whole another world out there?
Well, during my my learning about the music industry with Little Anthony and Imperials and going to these rock and roll shows, I seen all of these artists getting along. Everybody was getting along. The Temptations got along with the Four Tops, Supremes, and all of this, and they all got along with my uncle. And then backstage, after the shows were over, they would come out of their dressing room and everybody is in the hallway and they're singing gospel songs. And I'm going like, wow, first of all, I'm going like, well, how do they know these songs? Everybody from different places, everything, but they knew all of these songs. Black, white, other, ethnicities and stuff. They sang together and there was no animosity toward anybody. And when I seen that, everybody getting along, I said to myself, this is the business that I want to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing the power of music, right? It just unites people. It's a commonality.
Absolutely. And I seen that. I seen white artists getting along with black artists getting along with white artists, and everybody, and it was true. You know, it wasn't fake or anything like that, you know, because I was a great observer, and I would look at people and see if they smiled a lot, you know, when they seen people and they congratulate each one for their shows. And the only competition was when they were doing the shows.
Yeah.
No, I mean, my uncle group, Lou Anthony Imperials, one of the guys would say, Pepe, go to the Four Tops room and find out what color uniforms they're going to wear.
Okay.
And I go, you know, I go to the Temptations room, the Four Tops and everything, because they didn't want to clash. And I said, the Imperials want to know what colors you guys are going to wear on the next show. And they would say, oh, we're going to wear blue, you know, or the Temps would say, well, we're going to wear red. And we said, okay. And I go back up to the Imperials dressing room and I said, well, the Tops are wearing blue, the Temptations are wearing red. And then Sammy from the Imperials go, okay, yeah, we're going to wear white. We're going to kill them with the white. You know, and that was the only competition, you know, to outdo each other on stage. But after the shows were over, I mean, these people were like the best of friends. We went out to dinners, we went out to lunches, we went to parties. I mean, it was just amazing how everyone got along.
What did you learn about work ethic being around people at that level in the industry?
Well, I know that they worked very hard. I used to go to all of the, how would you say it? They would go and rehearse their rehearsals. I used to go to all of the rehearsals and stuff, and I would see how hard these guys would work on harmonies and how they got along with each other, how like my uncle, they called him Notes because he had all the notes that everybody would sing. And he would tell, like Ernest from the Imperials, hey, you do this note. And Sammy, you would do this note, and I'll do this note. And if they couldn't do a certain note, then my uncle would say, okay, then you do this note up until this part, and then I'll switch over and I'll do this other note. And then we'll go back to the original, you know, standard thing that they were doing. And I would go, wow. And they would have a guy there playing piano. Kenny Seymour would play piano. And he would take one of the Imperials' places when one guy was sick or you couldn't make it to the show and stuff. And these guys fit each other's uniform. So, you know, it was easy for them to wear, you know, each other's uniform. And they worked so hard, man. We used to go to Harlequin Studios out in New York where they would do all their rehearsals and everything like that. And they would do all of the harmonies and practice and practice and practice. And I knew then that practice makes perfect.
Yes. Were you always musically inclined yourself as well as a youngster?
I'll tell you, as a young guy in Brooklyn, my uncle had two bugles in the house, in the apartment. And, you know, I would find them and then I would start, you know, learning how to play a bugle and stuff. And I learned. I had my lips got really good and stuff, and I started learning that. And I used to belong to the Blue Jackets Guard, which is a drum and bugle corps. And I started off playing the big bass drum, and I had to strap this thing on at a wall, you know, and we would do marches and we would do parades and everything. And then I wanted to learn more about it, and I started practicing drums and stuff. You know, I started playing drums, regular drums and everything. And then I wanted to be a songwriter, and I was going like, well, you know, drums don't have chords. So how could I, you know, do this? So I bought a guitar for like $15 from this pawn shop, and I bought a guitar book, and I started learning chords and started singing and started writing lyrics and stuff, and got a lot of help from Teddy Randazzo, who wrote "Going Out of My Head," "Hurt So Bad," "I'm Outside Looking In," "Take Me Back" for the Imperials, and he was just such an amazing guy. He would help me out with my lyrics. I had a notebook and I used to write down all kind of lyrics and everything. And then one of the songs that I've written was called "My Mind Is Open," and uh, I was just a guitar player at that point, and Anthony and my uncle produced one of my first songs, which was called "My Mind Is Open" for the Blues Busters.
How
And
old
I
were
went
you?
to that. Oh, I must have been like 17 then,
Wow.
around 17. And they produced it, and I went to the recording and went to the studio, and I'm seeing how all these things putting together with the uh, uh, all the other musicians and how they was playing, and the engineer, on the mixing board and everything. And they sang my song, and they did such a great job. But I, to me, I was going like, I would have did something a little different, you
Okay.
know. So then I had to learn how to produce,
Mm.
and all of that. And my uncle taught me harmonies and everything. So it all came into play, So everything led to another, as a musician, as a songwriter, then as a producer.
And
Yeah.
what was your favorite role you got to play or that you've played
My as a musician, or as just in the music
in the
industry.
music industry? What's been your favorite role?
Well, my favorite role was Mr. Teddy Randazzo, who produced Little Anthony and the Imperials. They were doing uh, "Take Me Back," one of their hits, and Teddy allowed me to orchestrate all the musicians.
Okay.
And it was like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you had a full orchestra with French horns, trombones, trumpets, drummer, guitar, bass, everything. And they said, "Okay, Pepe, we want you to conduct the orchestra." And I was like, "Yeah." I didn't know. All I knew was what I seen on TV,
Yeah.
doing this, and I counted them off: 1, 2, 3, 4, and they started playing and everything, and I'm still conducting, and I had this big smile on my face, and you can see some of the musicians was like looking at me, and they were smiling, and they were
Yeah.
nodding, like, "Yeah, he's doing a good job." And I loved that role. I absolutely loved it.
Now, did you have formal musical training? Like, did you go to school for music or specialize, or did you just grow up learning from the people around you?
It's funny that you should say that, because in school I was had music class, and I was a drummer,
Okay.
and I had to learn how to read drums. And I learned that, but I used to cut up so much as a kid, young teenager. They kicked me out of music class, and they put me in art. I didn't know anything about art, but I learned from just observing and watching other musicians. And then when I picked up guitar, I did go to Brooklyn Conservatory of Music and started learning more chords on the guitar and how to play. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that's amazing that you learned it just being around it, you know?
Yes, yeah. And in my family, not only my uncle, but my nephew, Keith Middleton, he was a member of Stomp out in New York for like 15, 17 years. But I remember the first time as a teenager, he came to a recording studio where I was co-producing with Tony Sylvester. Now, Tony Sylvester was a member of the main ingredient recording group. And Cuba Gooden Sr. was
Okay.
the lead singer.
Yeah.
So Tony and I got together on an album that I was doing. One of my first albums was Minneapolis Genius. And they paid me, this person, Jeffrey Pink, who started this label called Hot Pink. And I told him, I said, "Look, I'm going to sell the copyrights to some of these songs that I got. And he goes like, no, no, don't sell them, man. So he went and found money from everybody and got money and stuff. And he paid me like $10,000 to do my own album.
Okay.
And I was kind of scared. I was going like, gee, am I that good of a producer to do this? Actually, it was $20,000. And I called Tony up. I said, Tony, man, you got to help me do this record, man, because I didn't know if I was really that qualified to produce on my own.
Yeah.
So I brought in Tony and I paid him $10,000 and I had the other $10,000. And I learned from Tony Sylvester really how to really produce music.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. I getting ready for you. I stumbled across a video where you talked about meeting Chantel for the first time, and that kind of leads you into Prince's world.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you mind sharing that story? I found it. I just loved hearing it. You mind sharing that?
I'm going to tell you something, and it's amazing to me, and it showed me that God works in mysterious ways. He works in mysterious ways, and none of this would have happened if I had said something differently.
Mm-hmm.
My uncle's group, Little Anthony Imperials, started performing at the world famous Copacabana in New York. And so I was their valet. I was hanging up their clothes, giving them towels to wipe sweat off their face and everything. And so one performance, Sammy comes up to the dressing room and I said, the show was great because I was standing in the wings and watched the show. But before they had finished, I had to run upstairs and get towels and everything and prepare everything for these guys when they came off the stage. So Sammy comes into the dressing room and he goes, hey, Pepe. And I say, yes, Sammy, what's up? And I'm taking off his jacket and I'm hanging it up and I'm giving him a towel. He says, who's that girl out in the waiting room with the green eyes? So I thought to myself, hey, these guys are getting all the girls, maybe I could find me a girl for me and stuff. And I said to Sammy, I said, oh, yeah. I said, the girl with the green eyes. I said, that's my girlfriend, man. He goes, oh, really? And I go like, yeah. Now I said that because I knew that he would leave her alone, if he knew that was my girl.
Right.
So I go out into the waiting room and I go out in the waiting room. And there's tons of people there and all these people. And I had to find this girl with the green eyes. And I'm looking around and people looking at me. And I finally seen her, the girl with the green eyes. And I went and I sat down next to her. And I says, hello, my name is Pepe. What's your name? She says, oh, my name is Chantel. And I said, hi, Chantel. I said, how did you get in? How did, who you come to see? He says, oh, I come to visit my Aunt Kalua. And I says, oh, I know Kalua. Kalua was dating my uncle at the time. And I says, well, if you don't have a curfew, can you hang out after the show and everything? And she goes like, yeah, I don't have no curfew. I can go out and hang out. And that's how it happened. And she happened to be Prince's first cousin. Now, can you imagine if I would have said, oh, I don't know.
Right. What would have happened?
Everything would have been totally different.
Yeah.
It would have been totally different.
I love it. So, and you found her with the green eyes.
Yeah, I found her with the green eyes. And then we fell in love. We hung out a lot. I talked about the music business to her all the time and everything. We got into concerts for free because I knew how to talk my way into the concerts and everything.
Yep.
And so we fell in love. And then later on, I got drafted into the Army. And when I got out in 1970, instead of me going back home to Brooklyn, I went to Minneapolis. And that was the first time that I met Prince. And he was 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
I thought he was 8 because, he's short and he's wrestling on the floor with his cousin Charles. And I didn't pay him no mind. I stayed in Minneapolis for about 3 months because I got out in December and I had to get back to New York to keep my job with the New York Telephone Company. And so this was in 70, and then in 1973, Prince had called me because Chantel was telling him, "Oh, Pepe knows about the music business. If anything you want to know about the business, you should ask Pepe and everything." And she used to come to New York every year, and we would hook up and everything like that and have a good time. So Prince calls me and he goes, "Hi," and I go like, "Hi." This is the kind of like the first time that I met him when I was talking to him, because when he was 12 years old, I didn't really talk to him.
Sure.
So he asked me this question. He says, "Yeah, I want to know about publishing in the music industry and stuff." And I said, "Well," I says, "I'll be in Minneapolis soon, and I'll talk to you about it then, because it's hard for me to really explain it over the phone." And he says, "Okay, cool." So that following year, 1974, is when I went to Minneapolis. I was married to his cousin by then. We got married in Brooklyn. And I went to Minneapolis in 1974. And my father-in-law, Eddie Mandeville, had a ski club. And they used to go skiing all the time. So I had to get me a ski outfit to go skiing and everything. And I learned how to ski. And then after that, he had a party at Paul's place in Minneapolis. Now, the band was playing there. Grand Central was the band that was playing at the ski party. And I was having a good time and everything, meeting all the new people that were there from my father-in-law. And this woman kept looking at me. And I was going like, why is this, woman keep looking at me? She kept looking at me. So finally I go over to her and I says, "Hi, my name is Pepe. How are you?" She goes, "Oh yeah, my name is LaVon." And I says, "Hi, LaVon." And she says, "How do you like the band?" And I was going like, "Well, yeah, I think the band is good. They're great, And she says, "Would you want to work with them?" And I was going, why is she asking me this? Now I didn't even really know this, but somebody had told the band that this big time producer was coming in from New York to hear them. Now I didn't know it was me. So she asked me, "Would you want to work with the band?" And I said, "Sure, I'll work with the band." So they set up rehearsals at Morris Day's house. And LaVon was Morris Day's mom. So she was managing the band. So I was invited to work with the band, and that's how it all started.
Wow. Now, but you weren't working music full time. You said you were with the New York Phone Company?
Yeah, I was a cable splicer at New York Telephone Company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you eventually go into music full time, or did you always keep another career?
No, I didn't go back into music until I was in college. And my second year in college, I had thought to myself, I says, "Pepe, if you're going to be a musician or make it in the music industry, you have to do it full time, And I went to college for electrical technology, and the math was killing me. It was just killing me, and I couldn't do it anymore. And as I was walking across the street to another building, to my gymnastic class, because I was a gymnast as well, and in the middle of the street, as I'm walking across the street, I said, "Pepe, this is your last class. If you're going to be in the music business, you have to concentrate totally in music." And I went to my gymnastic class and I quit college, and that was it. And I started devoting my time full time in music.
Okay.
And,
Nice. And then that ended up becoming your career.
yes, absolutely. And I love it. I tell you, I love the music industry, although it has changed from when I was growing up in it until today. Today is totally different, years ago, when I was coming up, you can go into a skyscraper building in Manhattan and look at the directory and go, oh, RCA is on the 20th floor, and you can go up and then talk to an A&R guy. Now you can't even get into the building.
Sure.
It's just totally different. It totally changed. Yeah.
So going back to Prince when he was a young boy, did you know or could you tell that he was special?
Well, people ask me this question and they say, did you know that Prince was going to be who he is and blah, 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 blah. And my answer is no. I didn't know. All I knew that he was my cousin-in-law through my marriage. And when I rehearsed with their band, Grand Central, I noticed that he was a good, guitar player. Yeah, he was definitely better than me. I mean, he was a great guitar player. And then one day at rehearsal, he went over to Andre's sister, Linda, and he had said, this is what I want you to play. And he went to the keyboards and he started playing these keys. And I'm looking at him and I'm going like, well, wait a minute. This guy plays guitar and keyboards. I said, okay, cool. So then they play the song. Then he stops again. He goes like, Andre, let me hold your bass. Now, Andre disputes this, but this is, this is the only way that I knew that he played several instruments.
Right.
So he takes Andre's bass and he starts playing it. He says, Andre, this is what I want you to play. Boom, boom, boom. And before he even finished playing what he wanted Andre to play, Andre says, okay, I got it. Because Andre is just as talented.
Right.
And so they start playing and I'm going like, well, wait a minute. This guy plays guitar. He plays keyboards and he plays bass. I says, wow, man, I says, okay. So then I asked him right then and there, I said, Prince, have you ever been in a recording studio before? And he says, no. And I says, well, I'm in the studio now with my band, 94 East, and I want you to come and play electric guitar for me. And he says, oh, okay, cool. And I gave him a cassette of 5 songs that I had written on the guitar. And I says, you come up with guitar parts, that you would like to play. And he says, okay, cool. And in the meantime, because not only did I rehearse with these guys musically, I also had them put down their instruments and I talked to them about the music business.
Yeah.
So then now I had to get Prince into the musicians union so that I could produce him, properly, legally. And so I took him down. He got signed up as a guitar player in the musicians union. And then 2 weeks later, we're in the studio and we're recording. And I've written like 5 songs, If You See Me, If We Don't, Games, Better Than You Think, and I'll Always Love You. These are the 5 songs. And we kicked it off, 2, 3, 4, boom. And we started playing. And I couldn't really hear what Prince was playing because I was concentrating on what I was playing, right. And I hoped that everybody else was concentrating on what they're playing. And Dale Alexander was our drummer. He was 16 years old. Prince was 17 years old. Andre was around the same age, 17. And me and the bass player, we were the older ones. We were like 27, 25, 26, 27, around there.
Sure.
And then had the 2 background singers, Marcy and Volkstad and Christy Lazenberry. So we did 5 songs in 4 hours. And then after that, I would get a copy of what we did and I'd go home and I'd listen to it. And I was going like, wow, man, Prince is really kicking it, man. He's playing, this was the first time I can really hear what he was actually playing. And then Wendell Thomas, my bass player, he calls me up and he says, Pepe, because I had gave him a copy of it too, because we were the 2 oldest people in the group. Mm-hmm. And he helped me find the musicians. His brother was Dale, was the drummer, and then Pierre, the keyboard player. And I said, yeah, man. I said, this guy is playing. I mean, how did he come up with all of these guitar licks that he's playing on all the songs? I mean, everything was like great. And I was going like, wow, man, we talked for at least an hour on the phone about what Prince was playing.
Sure.
Yeah, this is really nice. So we hung up the phone. And then later on, Prince calls me. I think it was like 3 a.m. And I go like, yeah, Prince, what's up, man? He says, well, I got to go back in the studio. And I says, well, what do you mean you got to go back? He says, well, there was a part that I want to do better. And I was going like, how could you do it better? I mean, me and Wendell was just on the phone, hours earlier about your playing. It was phenomenal. I mean, this thing is great. He goes like, no, man, I got to go back in and stuff. And I says, okay. So that morning, early in the morning, because I had booked a tea time for golf, because I'm a golfer. I love golf. And I called the studio and I said, well, if you got time, Prince wants to come back in and he wants to change something. And he says, okay, and this is like $100 an hour, and I'm going like, well, where am I going to get, the money? But the studio trusted me by then, because I was paying them all the time. And so I let Prince go back in and I went golfing.
Yeah.
This was his second time in the studio. He had never been in the studio before. So he goes back and he plays whatever he had to do. And I knew it was on the chorus of If You See Me. And if you listen closely, the first chorus, you can hear what he's playing the guitar, and it was great. And then the second chorus, when he came up, it was the same thing that he played on the first chorus, but it was slightly a little different tone because it was hard to recreate the same tone that we did.
Mm-hmm.
Because other bands come in the studio and they clear the board and everything, and trying to get it back perfect to what Prince's guitar was geared up to. It was, so it was a little different. You can hear the difference. I could hear the difference anyway, but it worked out fine. It just worked out fine.
What was it like to see his success then and that rise? Because he went to the top of the music industry.
Oh man, let me tell you, all I wanted for Prince was for him to have a career in the music industry. And that's what I set it up for. I said, this is what you have to do. You have to practice. You have to write songs. You have to just keep going, And he listened to everything I said. This guy, he believed in me of what I was telling him, and everything that I was telling him was correct. And to see him just catapult himself in the music industry the way that he did, I was in shock. I was in shock. I've seen, as growing up, I've seen a lot of artists. I've heard their hit records and everything, and it was good. I've been in studios. And for Prince his first album, the For You album, was just amazing. It was just amazing how he just wrote these songs and he played every instrument and did all the harmonies and everything. And the record was doing very well, I remember hearing one of his songs on a soap opera, and then when he did the Dick Clark interview, he played it on Dick Clark's show, American Bandstand. And I was going like, okay, he's cool. He's going to make it, But to the extent of being an icon, that I did not even know.
No.
But him just doing what he was doing, he was having a career in the business. And then one day we were at First Avenue, and I said to him, I says, okay, Prince, I says, you're up there now and you got a career. And he said to me, he says, Pepe, I'm not there yet. And I says, well, what do you mean you're not there yet? He says, I want to be in a place where people can't find me. I want to be that successful.
Oh, wow.
And I went like, wow, okay, cool. And then some girls came along, and then we just said, hey, all right, come on, let's go. We went to party, stuff like that and everything. And but I didn't know that he was going to be this phenomenon in the music business.
Sure.
Yeah.
How was your guys' relationship through the fame and stuff?
Well, through the fame, I mean, we were cool. Prince and I, we were really, really tight. And I protected him as much as I could.
Hmm.
I didn't like what his manager was doing. And so one day I was over Prince's house and he needed something. And I said, well, where's your manager? I mean, he's supposed to be doing all this stuff for you. And he says, well, I don't know. And he says he's probably at his office and stuff. So I go to his office. His name was Owen Husney. And he did good by Prince. I ain't taking away anything that he did because he got Prince signed to Warner Brothers. And but when I went to his office, I said, Prince needs this, and he needs that, and he needs this. And how are you at your office at this ad company that you are in? And he says, well, I'm not going to leave my job, he says. I'm not going to leave my job for someone who probably won't make it. And when he said that to me, I went like, are you kidding me? And he says, well, Pepe, you manage him then. And I says, look, I said, Owen, I am not a manager, but I know what a manager's supposed to do,
Sure.
you know? And I says, okay, Owen, and I couldn't do this legally, but I told him, I said, you're done. I said, you're fired, man. I go back to Prince's house and I said, Prince, he goes, yeah. I said, Owen is out. Prince looks at me and he goes, okay. Just like that. He just says, okay. So then I did manage him. I managed him for a few months. And he wanted me to be his permanent manager. And I said, Prince, I'm not a manager, man. I'm a producer, I'm a musician, a songwriter. I said, but I'm gonna help you find a real manager in this business. And I started making phone calls. And I knew this friend of mine, Don Taylor, who managed the Imperials. He managed Marvin Gaye. He managed Diana Ross. He managed Bob Marley and the Wailers. And I called him up and I said, Don, he goes, this is Pepe. He goes, hey, Pepe, what's going on? And I said, look, I got a kid here who signed with Warner Brothers and he needs a manager. So Don flew me and Prince to Miami where he lived at. And I let him and Prince talk for a while and everything. And he asked Prince, he says, what's your tour budget? And Prince says, well, my tour budget is $80,000. So Don picked up the phone, called the Warner Brothers, talked to the president then, Mo Austin, hung up the phone after he got finished talking to Mo Austin and says, your tour budget now is $160,000. He got Prince another $80,000 in like 5 minutes.
Amazing.
I looked at Prince and I says, now this is what a manager does.
Yeah, that's good. Let's shift gears. You mentioned that you're a songwriter, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about is you have a passion for trying to get songwriters the recognition they deserve.
Right, yeah.
Because, as you say, they inspire movements and bring comfort to those who enjoy it. What is that? Is that what fulfills you as a songwriter? Is knowing you're connecting people?
Yeah, because of my experience in the business, I wanted people who wrote songs to get feedback from other people. When you write a song, okay, you know what you're feeling.
Yeah.
You know what you want to say, but is the message getting across? So you have to have other people listen to or read your lyrics and then tell you what they think.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, because that's what I did. You know, when I wrote a song, I'd give it to one of my friends and says, "Hey, read this. Tell me what you think about it." And then they would tell me the story, and I would go like, "Oh yeah, this is what I wanted people to hear. This is what I wanted them to perceive in the music." So my message is getting across. So when I talk to other songwriters, I said, you have to write songs that people can identify with, you know, not just for the sake of writing songs, you know. And if you write a song, it's not necessarily a record. You know, you have to make it a record, you know. So you have to have that formula in writing lyrics to music. Now, when I worked with Grand Central, Prince's band, and Morris Day was the drummer, and Andre's bass, and William Dowdy was playing congas, and Linda was playing keyboard, Prince playing guitar. I said, one of their first songs that they played for me was Sex Machine that Prince had written.
Yeah.
And the song lasted forever. You know, I was going like, oh, you know, this is not right. I says, okay, it's a good song. I said, but it's not a record. I said, radio only allows you 3 minutes, maybe 3 minutes and 30 seconds for a song. So you have to gear your song for that time.
Yeah.
So I gave them this formula that you have an intro, you have your first verse, then you got the hook. Then you got your second verse, and then you got a hook again. I said the hook has to appear in the song at least 3 times.
Okay.
Then you can have a bridge or vamp out, all depends on how the song is created, what you would do. And so I taught these guys how to write songs for radio, you know.
Sure.
And for other people, I had this group in the studio. They were the Lost Cowboys. It was a country western group, you know, and I told them guys the same thing, and they did very well. But the message has to get across to the people so that they can identify with what you're saying. And it has to be true. It has to be real. You just can't, they have novelty songs and all of this that make it. But if you really want a career in this business, you have to write songs of what people are going through today.
Sure.
You know, whether their love life or whether they're not making enough money or current events and everything like that, what's going on. So you have to be true to what you're saying.
Yeah, I love it. And you got a book out, If You See Me, My 6-Decade Journey in Rock and Roll, which we'd love to support. I know one of the things you're passionate about that I want to touch before we wrap up, Pepe, is sharing the truth about Black history and the influence in music history. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, it's so many times that Black artists do well, and it's always another person, a Caucasian, a white guy, or, you know, or white people, business people who say, oh yeah, well, I discovered him.
Sure.
I did this and I did that and I did this. Now, in the Prince situation, I know that I'm Prince's first producer.
Right.
I know that I had geared him up to be a good musician in this business and stuff, you know, and I prepared him for success. Now, there's another guy named Chris Moon who wrote Soft and Wet with him, who says that he's Prince's first producer, you know, and I'm going like, no, you're not.
Right.
It was me, you know. Now, of course, I didn't have my songs released that Prince played on that I produced at that time. I mean, they're out there now.
Sure.
You know? But people tried to hold me back, you know, when they did interviews and they did a special PBS thing on TV about Prince, and I wasn't even mentioned.
Right.
No, and I had to call the station. And I said, "Who did your research?" Because, I started Prince in this business. I've taken him to the studios for the first time. I got him hooked up in a musicians union. I taught him about business, and I started his first publishing company for him, so he didn't get ripped off by record labels and
Right.
everything, so that he could own his own music. And they told me, they says, well, maybe we'll get you in on part two. And I knew that it was never going to be a part two.
Sure.
So it was a thing of mine to make sure that people knew that I was a guy from Brooklyn who started Prince off, Morris Day, Andre Simone, in this business.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
I wrote my book, If You See Me, and it tells the story of how I came up in the business and the artists that I associated with in that time. And that's why Prince and Grand Central, the whole band, believed in me, because I told them these stories of how I hung out with Marvin Gaye, how I hung out with Martha and the Vandellas and the Chiffons and the Ronettes and, all these people. And so they trusted me.
Yeah.
I wasn't the only person that they had that came to them and said they was going to do good for them, but they didn't trust those other people, but they trusted me. So all the interviews that his people around him when he got signed with Warner Brothers were white, of course. And I have nothing against them as far as them helping Prince and getting him all the accolades that he has gotten, getting signed with Warner Brothers and all of this, but why are you going to leave me out?
Right.
Because if you would have heard him before me, you would say, no, you're not ready yet.
Yeah.
And I was the one to prepare him. So it took me 10 years to write my book. And I was hoping that Prince would still be alive when I finished the book, but evidently he passed away too soon for me.
Yeah.
So Black history is very important to me because we don't really have a history, of where we came from. We know we're from Africa and all this type of stuff, but that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the history? Where's all of this? And I know that a lot of Black artists and athletes had came up, like my cousin. My cousin was an NBA player, in basketball, Connie Hawkins.
Yeah.
And Dr. J learned from him.
Yeah.
So these history things are very, very important to me.
I love it. Well, I love it, Pepe, and I think you're exactly right. We got to understand the importance of sharing our stories.
Right, absolutely.
Because if I play and make it to the NBA and I play my career and then I just move on in life and I don't share that story, well, people can't learn the lessons, right? They can't understand how somebody like you impacted somebody else if you don't share that story.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I had to share the story of me meeting Chantel.
For sure.
Because what you say is can change your whole life.
Yeah. What you say or don't say.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Pepe, it's been a privilege and an honor to have you on the show today, my friend. Where would you like our listeners to go to be part of your community to help follow your work here?
Oh, to follow me, you can go to pepemusic.com. You can get my book at all major bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and it's a great read. We've been getting a lot of great feedback, not just good, but great feedback on this book. It's a very good read, and hopefully people will get it and learn how the Minneapolis Sound really got started with Prince.
Yeah, and then get over and listen to some of your music too, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my music you can find everywhere. We're on Spotify, we're on Amazon, we're all over the place, 94 East. That's all you got to look at, baby.
Well, Pepe, thanks so much for the conversation, my friend. It's been an honor to share this time with you, and I can't wait to see what you continue to do.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.